Tony Heller is one of my favorites. He's let me just play part of this one.
Hello, this is Tony Heller from RealClimateScience.com. Global warming isn't keeping people warm, fossil fuels are. This week in 1923, the New York Times reported cold snap breaks gas record, 195 million cubic feet of natural gas used in one day. The extreme cold weather of the last few days is reflected in the amount of gas consumption in the city. Over the past 2 weeks, we've been subjected to lots of propaganda claiming that cold weather is caused by global warming. But we've always had extreme cold, and for at least a century, people have been relying on natural gas to keep from freezing to death. Before that, people relied on firewood to keep warm, which was extremely damaging to the environment and caused huge amounts of air pollution. But now climate alarmists say that emissions from burning fossil fuels are causing the Arctic to melt and we're all going to drown. Climate alarmists say that there's been a huge increase in the amount of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere over the past century, and it's causing catastrophic changes in climate. It isn't difficult to check these claims out. In that same issue of the New York Times on February 25, 1923, they had another article. Report the Arctic is getting warmer. Old glaciers have disappeared. Changes in flora and fauna. The Arctic seems to be warming up. Reports from fishermen, seal hunters, and explorers who sail the seas about Spitsbergen in the eastern Arctic all point to a radical change in climatic conditions and hitherto unheard of high temperatures in that part of the earth. Old glaciers have disappeared and land once covered with field ice is bare. Many old landmarks are so changed as to be unrecognizable. Where formerly great masses of ice were found, there are now often moraines, accumulations of earth and stones. At many points where glaciers formerly extended far into the sea, they have entirely disappeared. There were few seals in Spitsbergen waters this year, the catch now being far below average. This, however, did not surprise the captain. He pointed out that formerly the waters about Spitsbergen held an even summer temperature up to 3 degrees Celsius. This year recorded temperatures up to 15 degrees, and last winter the ocean did not freeze over even on the north coast of Spitsbergen. So 100 years ago, with carbon dioxide levels much lower, the Arctic was seeing radical warmth, glaciers were disappearing, the ocean had warmed up 12 degrees, and there wasn't any ice around Spitsbergen even during the winter. And at the same time, conditions in the United States were extremely cold. This is very similar to the climate which alarmists claim is occurring right now. What they were seeing in 1923 obviously had nothing to do with an increase in carbon dioxide in the atmosphere because such a thing hadn't occurred. Here's a map from the Washington Times around that same period. The black area shows the extent of the ice around Spitsbergen during the prior winter. You can see that Spitsbergen was completely devoid of sea ice during the winter of 1922. Now let's compare ice during the winter of 1922 to the summer of 2020. There was lots of ice around Spitsbergen last summer, but during the winter of 1922, there was no ice at all. So to make it clear, there's more ice now around Spitsbergen than there was 100 years ago. Here's another article from the Chicago Tribune, March 1st, 1923. The Arctic Ocean is growing much warmer, at least in certain parts. This has been confirmed by numerous scientific expeditions this winter. Spitsbergen is now free from all ice, and the permanent ice fields of the Greenland Sea have retreated 2,500 miles north of Norway. So we know that the Arctic was very warm 100 years ago, and this was confirmed by numerous scientific expeditions. Here's another article from the St. Louis Star from 1922. Let's take a closer look at this map, which was prepared by the explorer Stephenson. He said that the ice between the North Pole and Alaska was young, thin, moving ice. To judge from Stephenson's description of the polar ice, the submarine could only be used in the region extending from the North Pole towards Alaska and eastern Siberia. This is a region of new ice, consequently thin ice and rotten ice. Climate alarmists love to claim that the ice in the Arctic Ocean used to be very, very thick, like 50, 60 feet thick. It's only been in the last 30 years that it got thin. But this delusion simply isn't true, as the New York Times pointed out on October 19, 1958. They said, Although the idea that a solid ice sheet covers the central Arctic has lingered stubbornly in the popular fancy, the northern cap of ice worn by our planet is actually a thin crust on the whole, only about 7 feet thick. So in 1958, the New York Times said that Arctic sea ice was about 7 feet or 2 meters thick. And now, in the year 2021, the ice in the Arctic Ocean is about 2 meters thick, or the same as it was in the year 1958. And note that there's lots of ice in Baffin Bay. Let's compare that to 1924. In 1924, the U.S. Weather Bureau reported that Baffin Bay was largely free of ice during winter. So we know that one.
Okay, I'm going to shut it off now. It goes on for 24 minutes. And just if you're interested in seeing more, please go to YouTube, look up Tony Heller. Virtue signaling doesn't keep people warm. This is his format, as he compares what has been said over 100 years or more and today, and shows that it's just the same. Okay, thank you.